How concerned are you about, obviously short term, we're all concerned, but just long term for Tua? I mentioned the 2 concussions in 2022. Long term, how concerned are you?
Extremely. You know, Jay, I am not a doctor. I did have some concussions while I was playing, and our team docs in Seattle basically said, hey, and again, things have changed. I am not a doctor, but the message that was preached to me was it's not necessarily terrible if you get one. It's all about, you know, the second, the third, the fourth. That's when things can really get you in trouble.
Yeah.
And it was such a great thing that last year he was able to, you know, play the whole year and be healthy. But to be this early in the year and have a concussion, like you said, with his history, and just, you know, the way he goes down, the whole thing with his hands, it's hard to watch. It's hard to talk about, and you just feel so bad for the guy, and I'd be extremely concerned.
And, you know, you and I were talking about it before the show. If you're I just don't understand how you're not sliding 10 yards ahead of any defender who comes at you.
And, Jay, we were talking about before the show, like, it almost seemed, obviously this was the biggest event, but the whole team was on this, like, hey, we got to beat the Bills.
Yeah.
We got to beat these guys. They run the division. And it brought me back, you know, to my early days with Pete Carroll. And one of the first things he said when I got to the NFL was we need to treat every game the same. As hard as that is, you got to fight human nature. But you cannot emphasize one game more than the next because you'll start trying hard. You'll start trying to do too many things. If you are a talented team, which I believe the Dolphins are, you don't need to have these, you know, superhuman efforts and do things that you don't need to do. And again, that was one of the plays, but I thought it was littered throughout this entire team for the whole game. And they're just pressing and they're pressing. And I just felt like that's a moment where Tua, you got to love the heart, you got to love the passion, and he's trying for his teammates, but you just don't need to do it. You got the first down, slide.
And then it's really serious because where do the Dolphins go from here? We saw what Skylar Thompson can do. Tim Cook is their third stringer. Sorry, Tim Boyce is their third stringer. Not Apple CEO Tim Cook, Tim Boyce.
Might as well be Tim
Might
Cook.
as well be Apple CEO Tim Cook. And, you know, I was asking around, I'm like, you know, what free agent quarterbacks are out there? Well, Ryan Tannehill's out there. They drafted him in the first round about 10 years ago.
That's where I would go. And even watching Skylar, didn't think he looked very comfortable back there. To me, you go get a veteran guy, whether it's Tannehill.
Yeah.
You can't throw the towel in the season, but it certainly looks, you know, very bleak right now. The saving grace is you still have Tyreek, you still have Waddle. I think there's a lot of issues that the Bills exposed tonight. You know, I have my own conspiracy theory here that's not going to come to reality, but I believe Stephen Ross owns this team.
Yes,
who's a big Michigan guy. So if I'm Ross right now, I'm calling up Tom and saying, listen, Brady, I'm a Michigan man, you're a Michigan man. We got Hill, we got Waddle, save the season.
That would be wild.
Again, probably not going to happen, but it's fun to kind of think about.
I mean, first game didn't go so great for Brady as far as broadcasting is concerned. Maybe he makes a quick exit right back onto the field. There is no team in the NFL, and I alluded to it, there's no team in the NFL Josh Allen likes playing against more than the Miami Dolphins, Luke. Look at these numbers.
Dominates him. But I will say, and I feel pretty dumb, if you would have told me before the game that the Bills were going to win this game by 21 points and Josh Allen would throw for 139 yards, I would have said you know nothing about football. But clearly, I am the clown tonight. Clearly. Because that was not what I expected. I think there were a lot of people that expected that. But you do got to love the way Josh is playing. I mean, he didn't need to throw for 200. He didn't need to throw for 300.
Yep.
With the 139 he did throw, I thought the guy looked elite. Elite.
And here's the interesting thing about Buffalo's offense, and Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit talked about it on the broadcast. You know, you trade away Stephon Diggs. Pretty much all the receivers except for Khalil Shakir are new. And then you get James Cook with this terrific game. They're spreading everything around. Is that sustainable? Is that the way they should be playing, spreading the offense around to almost everybody?
Definitely the way they should be playing. It looked great tonight. I think they're going to continue to build on that because the weapons are good. Yes, there's not a all-pro guy in there, but there's not any slouches either. When you say is it sustainable, the margin of error shrinks when you play this way as far as self-inflicted wounds. And we talked about this last week. They had 9 penalties for 65 yards.
Yeah.
They had, you know, a pretty crucial turnover. Where tonight, they had 1 for 5 yards, and they protected the ball extremely well. And if you can play clean football with these players, it's definitely sustainable. In fact, to me, I would prefer teams kind of adapt to this style of play because it's hard to defend.
Yeah.
It's hard to come out here and say, hey, as you saw, Shakir kind of got loose tonight. Kincaid week 1, slow week today, made a couple big plays early. James Cook obviously ran the ball extremely well. So now when you're this defensive coordinator prepping for the Bills, you can't sit here and say, hey, we're going to take James Cook away. Okay, we'll throw it over here. Hey, we're going to take Shakir away. I still think Coleman will continue to develop, the rookie. So it's very, very sustainable as long as you don't shoot yourself in the foot, which, again, the Bills did not tonight. And I hope that they can keep this run going because if they play like this, they're a great football team. If they play sloppy like last week, they're an average/good football team. So, again, we'll see how they keep going here. And I know the Bills fans don't like me because I'm real tough on them. But tonight was as clean as I've seen them play in a long, long time.
And that's just tough love, Bills
Tough
Mafia.
love.
That's tough love, all right? That's the kind of love you guys need. Actually, it's amazing because, you know, the way the Jets played against the 49ers, we know what the Patriots are, and now you see what's happened with Miami. Suddenly,
They're in the driver's seat.
if you're a Mafia fan, you're like, oh, this is looking great for us in this division. And then I want to talk to you about the defense, and it's hard to kind of get a handle on a defense when the other team's star quarterback goes down and you got the backup in for the second half. They don't score any points. But what did you think of the defense in this win?
I mean, it couldn't have gone any better. I did think they got some help from Miami. But I think that as a defensive front, they're not going to be, you know, the 85 Bears.
Right.
They don't have that personnel.
I just love how that's always the reference.
Ed Oliver was everywhere tonight, which is huge up front. And if you can stop the run game, you know, and try and force teams into making mistakes. And I think what they did was they sat back in a really soft shell. They were able to get home, you know, get some pressure on Tua, contain the run game, and Tua made some mistakes. So that is definitely a viable way to play. And if you can combine that with an offense like tonight, run by Josh Allen, you're going to win a lot of football games.
And now, you know, in the end, did the Bills play great? Or did the Dolphins, was it just a Dolphins implosion and we better just shelve this one until we see how we do against Jacksonville in week 3?
I'm going to try and not explode here because I don't want to take anything away from Bills Mafia. I've been nice to them.
Yeah.
But the Miami Dolphins, I don't know what's going on here. From the start of the game, we talked about it. They throw the first pick to Dubose, which I thought was actually a great throw from Tua. Okay, and then later on, like, look at this, Jay. In defense, you got to have gap integrity, meaning the A and B gap. We have a triple team on a defensive tackle. What do you want him to do? Who gets pushed into the lap of the linebacker. You're fundamentally unsound here. And at this point of the game, you've already been ran all over. What are we thinking? It's like, hey, James Cook is running all over us. We got to go. No, we're going to let our D tackle. Again, that's actually schemed up the way that run play goes to have 2 guys on the D tackle, not 3. But the extra O-lineman has no one to go to because we're so fundamentally unsound. And let's go back to the offensive side of the football. The first pick goes to Dubose.
Yeah.
The second pick is a miscommunication with Robbie Chosen. And my point here is, you're playing the Bills. All week you've heard, hey, we got to beat the Bills if we want to run this division. We want to own this division. Live and die with Tyreek Hill and Waddle. Live and die with these guys. Even the backfield, Mostert is not there. And I know Achane looked great. But we come out, and I could not believe it. I'm sitting upstairs just pulling my hair out. We're lining up with fullbacks, 2 tight ends. And I'm like, why would you want this matchup? Teron Johnson, the nickel cornerback for the Bills, was out. That was supposed to be a huge loss. Let's scheme up the secondary. We know they're going to be playing soft. No, we come out and think now that we are a downhill running football team. We've got 23 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends and 3. I can't even get into it. I'm so mad. Okay, we got Alec Ingold, who's a fullback, and he's a great fullback. Okay, had 2 carries in the first half. Jalen Waddle had 2 targets.
It's wild.
So my question is, and I'll end this rant, what was the game plan?
And so that's my next question for you. Mike McDaniel, a guy who's widely seen as one of these bright young minds in the game. It just seemed he had no game plan in this particular case.
And he had no game plan and no adjustments. And I'd like to go back because I want to rant. 23 personnel, we're talking, we got 3 backs here at some points. Our fullback, 2 running backs back there. We got 2 tight ends coming in the game. Again, and then you see it's not really working or you're getting down. You talk about Mike McDaniel. And it's like, okay, this was our game plan. Yes, we want to stick with it, but now we're down 14. Okay, now Von Miller's getting loose. Have some halftime adjustments. Have some side. Why do you think we have the iPads?
Yeah.
Sit here, chip on the way out. Okay, our left tackle's hurt. Our left guard has left. We need to adjust. And that's where I'm pulling my hair out, where I'm like, hey, our O-line is shot. Mostert's not here. Ed Oliver is making every play known to mankind. We got to think on the fly here. And it just was like, no, we're going to stick with it. We're going to stick with it.
I'm starting to believe in your Brady, Stephen Ross theory. Let's move on to what's coming up on our next primetime broadcast on Sunday night. This is an intriguing matchup to me, Luke. I'm quite intrigued to see what happens. Both these teams won in week 1. Houston almost a touchdown favorite against Chicago. Texans have the 6th best odds to win the Super Bowl. D'Amico Ryans has totally changed the culture in that city.
He has, and I really think we need to see, Caleb Williams here, because if they want to have a hope, Caleb's got to play a lot better than last week, Jay.
Yeah.
I'm not giving the guy the pass. I do think he's incredibly talented, but I will say, he's made some comments.
They didn't win that week 1. That he had nothing to do with it. He completed 50% of his passes. He didn't even throw for 100 yards. I get that he's a rookie. But he's still the first overall pick.
He is. And again, I think that you need to see a lot more out of him. You look at this Bears team, and this is a quarterback who came in and said, hey, told the punter he's not going to have to punt much.
Right.
And we're missing throws like this in his first game. Again, I think the kid will be great. I really liked his physical ability. But if this Bears team wants to win some football games, he's got to play a lot better. And the good news, if you're a Bears fan, is that you sit here, you've got, Keenan Allen, who's a veteran receiver. You got DJ Moore.
Yeah.
You got Swift at running back. You drafted Oduzze. Like, we're rolling here. And I'm laughing because we're showing the punts. The infamous line was, hey, I told our drafted punter, we don't have to, you're going to be chilling. We're not going to punt. Well, week 1, my guy was out there punting.
Yep.
So, again, I do think Caleb needs to grow a lot more. He's got the first game, out of the way. But I'd like to see primetime games the #1 pick. Let's have a good game.
I'd like to see him play a little bit more the way C.J. Stroud played last season in his rookie year. Boy, he was awesome. A lot of hype around the Texans. I mentioned it. 6th best odds to win the Super Bowl this year. They bring in Stephon Diggs. Are you buying the hype from Houston?
I'm not. I'm not buying the Houston hype yet. I thought last week they gave a lot of big plays. AR5 there for the Colts looked great. Had a couple monster throws.
Richardson looked great.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of sitting here and I'm like, man, I know the hype. C.J. Stroud had a tremendous year. To me, there's a lot more. I think of that AFC. I obviously think of the Chiefs. I think Baltimore's going to win a lot of games. I think the statement that the Bills made tonight is going to send ripples through here. I don't put Houston in that category yet.
Right.
So to me, are they a good football team? Yes. But Super Bowl, I'm not buying that for a second.
I'll say this. I don't know if there are any Houston Texans fans out there, but the way the team is now compared to like 5 years ago, when the Reverend was hanging around in the front office and
the future's bright.
It's much better now.
The future is very bright. I don't want to be doom and gloom here.
Yeah.
I think they're 2 to 3 years away from being, in that conversation.
Absolutely.
But right now, I still think they need to kind of grow and develop. And there's some good football team in the AFC. Again, the Bills won by 21 points tonight, and Josh Allen threw for 139 yards.
Right.
I can't fathom that.
They are, the division is, you might just have to give it to them right now. Who's challenging? Are Aaron Rodgers and the Jets coming back?
That tickles my heart, Jay. That tickles my heart. Okay, on the field, I think Aaron's pretty talented. I don't think we count them out yet.
Yeah.
They played the Niners,
Yeah.
Doesn't get tougher than that. I do think Aaron will have some easier games coming up here, and they'll be in contention. But right now, the Bills are 100% in the driver's seat.